What up, y'all? It's YBF Pharoh, and we back in this thing with another edition of Blerds Explain. Now, I just want to get y'all to like and subscribe right now, okay? Way too many people watching but not subscribed. I need that to change real early on in the game, alright? So if you watching this, you like what you see, like and subscribe right now. And don't forget to like and subscribe to all the other pages I got linked below in the description as well. We'll also have little video clips running at the end of the video, so you can just click and subscribe right there. Alright, let's get into this thing. So today we gonna watch some clips from this new movie called They Cloned Fucking Tyrone. Okay, They Cloned Tyrone on Netflix. The shit is lit. It's not anime or anything like that, but it is still fantasy. So I feel like it still applies to this channel. Alright, and it's about us, so we gonna get into this shit. The movie is packed with a bunch of esoteric symbols, meanings, messages, and it's just something that could go for this channel and for my YBF Pharoh channel, so y'all need to go check that out too. I might post it on both, I don't know, we gonna see. But this show is amazing. You should definitely go watch it. I'm gonna also link some other shows that'll expand your consciousness and give you a look into what's really going on in the description. Alright, and we'll cover those too later in some other videos. But right now we're gonna get into They Cloned Tyrone.
They Cloned Tyrone is one of the weirdest films I've seen in a long time and has the best fried chicken ad since Jones Barbecue.
Why not let one of my foot specialists or myself perform our magic? Look at that, don't they look wonderful?
In this completely absurd film about the government controlling us through fried chicken and grape drink is a blistering commentary on society, racism, and of course the dangers of cloning.
Hey, I'm not the clone, you're the clone.
In this video we'll be taking a deep dive into the ending, the government's plan to assimilate, and the introduction of Tyrone. So grab a drumstick and relax, because here we go. Meet Fontaine, a down-and-out drug dealer struggling to survive in the cutthroat world of the Glen. It's never mentioned where exactly the Glen is, the license plates merely state that it's a swell place. Ironic since it couldn't be further from. But the question of where they are is also followed by when they are. You have things like flip phones, CDs, and a beeper emporium suggesting we could be in the early 2000s, yet characters will talk about more recent events like Obama as president or blockchain setting it closer to present day.
I would have voted for Obama for a third term if I could.
This is all part of the absurd aesthetic of the film, which I thought was almost as refreshing as a delicious Suma soda. Speaking of which, the film's first image is that of a white man's eyes watching over a group of black men, foreshadowing how the white-controlled surveillance state keeps a constant watch over the predominantly black neighborhood of the Glen. When Fontaine finds out one of his dealers, a pimp by the name of Slick Charles, is late on his payments, he pays him a visit. Now, Slick Charles says that the latest batch he got just ain't hitting right, and if you know the big twist of the movie, you'll understand why. More on that in a bit. The life of a drug dealer ain't easy in the Glen, and Fontaine is gunned down by rival dealer Isaac. But surprisingly, Fontaine wakes up good as new the next day. Now, when I was first watching this movie, I thought we were dealing with a Groundhog Day type situation. Fontaine will wake up every morning, go through the paces, and try to figure out what's going on, but They Cloned Tyrone is a little different. Unlike Phil in Groundhog Day, Fontaine has no recollection of the events of the previous day, but goes through many of the same sequences of events like weight training and buying beer and scratch tickets at the convenience store. But things start to get strange for Fontaine as he sees a bloody man get picked up by an SUV with local homeless man by the name of Frog stating,
"Off to see the wizard again."
In literature, frogs often symbolize ancient wisdom and knowledge. He may be a drunk homeless guy, but he seems to be the only person who knows what's going on in town. His reference to the Wizard of Oz is apt, considering Fontaine is still in our metaphorical Kansas, the Glen, but soon we'll find out that his world is being controlled by a seemingly all-powerful force with aspirations of total control. When Fontaine arrives yet again to ask for his money from Slick Charles, Charles can't believe he's alive.
You should be breathing through some tubes right now.
Charles saw him shot up just yesterday. How is he still here? This is where Woman of the Night Yo-Yo comes in. She recognized the car of the perps who shot Fontaine and takes them to it, where Fontaine just so happens to see the same black SUV he saw outside the convenience store. So he does the only rational thing and breaks into the neighboring home. But to their surprise, it's completely empty. That is, of course, if you don't count the super weird break room with a TV playing Bloodsport in the background. Now, a creepy house like this wouldn't be complete without a secret elevator leading down to a Walter White lab facility.
Goddamn right.
Here we find a substance that looks to be cocaine, but isn't quite. This is Compound H, a compound developed by the government and injected into various products like cocaine, fried chicken, hair cream, and grape drink to control the black population. As much of the film delves into Fontaine, Slick Charles, and Yo-Yo getting to the bottom of this mystery, just like a Nancy Drew novel, we don't get any answers until Fontaine devises a plan to rally alongside his rival drug dealer to take on the secret all-white scientists who live underneath the city experimenting on African Americans. But to understand how and why all of this has happened, we have to fast forward to the biggest twist of the film. The lead geneticist of this whole operation is none other than Fontaine himself, or should I say an older version. But why would he turn against his people? Why would he work with the very people who want to destroy his race? It all boils down to what happened to his little brother Ronnie. Earlier in the film, we hear that Ronnie was killed by what's heavily implied is a white cop who left him to die on the pavement after being shot without calling an ambulance. Thus, old Fontaine has this warped idea that by working with the government, he'd be preventing injustices like this from happening through a process he calls assimilation.
Assimilation is better than annihilation.
He would rather assimilate his people rather than see them annihilated. Now, the government wants to, quote, win the race of the future, which we can see printed on the side of the golf carts underground, a cheeky play on words with race here having two meanings. Kiefer Sutherland's
Alright, so I'm gonna pause it right there real quick. So yeah, that part right there really got to me because he wanted to take his people and basically assimilate them into the white race. Turn black people white over generations. And you have the original version speaking to the cloned version of Tyrone, and he's basically like, look, all your memories are implanted. Everything that you know is really what I went through. You haven't gone through shit past the last 2 days. And is blowing this kid's mind. So yeah, just think about that when we think about gentrification and all the other societal influences that white America has had on quote unquote black America. I mean, like Planned Parenthood, all this stuff goes into one. I mean, even if you've seen Hunters and they have high fructose corn syrup as a control agent and as a poison to the general populace, it's literally the same concept. So yeah, let's get back into that.
Kiefer Sutherland's character, who is the main baddie of the film, says,
And that's what we strive for.
Keeping the United States united.
but what he's really saying is keep the United States white. I also think it's ironic that his racist character is named Nixon and is played by a Canadian. Up until now, the project of creating controlled communities through drugs, music, and products was merely a band-aid solution to keep people of color contained. This process needed the use of specific clones, and it's important to note that not everyone in town is a clone, just key players instrumental in dealing out the products to keep these communities obedient, whether it be Fontaine and Slick Charles through laced cocaine, a hairstylist through perm creams, or the Reverend with his tainted blood of Christ.
And do you know what he wants most out of each and every one of you? Obedience!
And if you're not getting your dose of obedience through some delicious goddamn fried chicken, the government is continually experimenting on new methods, including music that can turn you from violent to peaceful. As I said, these are band-aid solutions for control, but old Fontaine has found a permanent solution through something he calls genetic assimilation.
It's not enough to think the same. We have to be the same.
His work in genetics allowed him to separate 378 unique genes that separated himself from white people, Asians, and Latinos. Thus, through generations, he could slowly assimilate people of color into white people, hence the tubes of black to white human specimens in his office. We saw some early test versions of this with the Afro-donning lab tech and chicken shop manager. Fontaine stumbles upon his clone in the duplication chamber and finds its number is A001, suggesting he was the first clone, which would make sense if he's based off its creator. But there are other Fontaines, such as Nixon's driver/bodyguard, Chester. Chester is super obedient, and Fontaine actually uses his code word Olympia Black, the same code Nixon used to control Fontaine, to shoot and kill his creator. The attack on the underground compound is a success, with all the clones set free. Fontaine even says he'll come to start a new life with Yo-Yo and Charles in Memphis, but just when it seems the story is done, Fontaine wakes up just like he did after he died back in his bed. But you'll start to notice some immediate differences, like the tattoos and haircut. We aren't in the Glen anymore. This looks like it could be Los Angeles. We get the big palm trees and LA Laker flags in his home. Like the Glen, however, is his daily routine, where we can see him weightlifting, going to the convenience store, and pouring the homeless man a drink. There's even a quick gang sign flashed by this kid suggesting he could be part of the Bloods or Crips. But it's when the news comes on that we see a clone of Fontaine on the screen. Now, we purposely do not know if this report is coming from the Glen. Just as the announcer is about to say where we are, a cough muffles the location. Even in the closed captioning, we don't get to see where this is. Nixon did tell us that the government has experiments all around the country, including Los Angeles and Detroit. So either what we're seeing here is more of the Glen or another location that managed to escape. You may have even noticed some Crunch cereal on the table here, the same cereal found in the Glen the government used to control its subjects. And the last line of the film is, "Ain't that you, Tyrone?" So the Los Angeles version of Fontaine is Tyrone, hence why the film is called They Cloned Tyrone. But now I want to hear what you thought of They Cloned Tyrone. Give me your thoughts and theories in the comments below.
Yeah, so that movie was really, really, really fucking dope. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you go fucking see that shit. It's on the same wave as like Up, Get Out, was it Us, Them. If you've seen any of these shows, Lovecraft Country, comment down below. Tell me what you think of them shows. Tell me if we should review them shows. I'm definitely gonna review Lovecraft because that's literally my favorite live action show to date. Like, I've never seen anything better than that. I honestly think if they did another season, they'd probably fuck it up with like new writers and some bullshit. So I really hope they don't bring it back. I loved the one season. I thought it was phenomenal, but that's not what this video is about. All right, it's about They Cloned Tyrone. What do you guys think of They Cloned Tyrone? Me personally, I really feel like They Cloned Tyrone was a perfect example of what we live in today. Especially now you have all these talks of these underground facilities being discovered, and just massive underground networks that us general population people don't have access to. I feel like there's probably a lot of similar stuff going on just like that. I mean, I was watching this video the other day that was saying that we don't know where our wisdom teeth go when we get them pulled. Like, you're not allowed to keep them. I still have my wisdom teeth, so I've never experienced that. If you've experienced that, comment down below, because that's just another example. They could be using the DNA from our teeth to make potential clones of us. You ever hear that theory that says everyone has a doppelganger here on Earth? That has to come from somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Maybe cloning has been going on for a lot longer than we could even imagine, you know? I'm the type of person that believes in societal and civilizational resets. Basically meaning that a cataclysm comes, wipes everything off, and things start over. But the things that were in the previous time to this one were probably way more advanced than the things that we have now. So I always like to keep things like that in mind, and keep in mind that, you know, there's other powers at work here. There's other very sinister, dark powers at work here. I'll put a tag down below for our Barskie and Pharoh podcast where we talk about reptilians. All of that shit is at play, because you have to think, you have to be really evil to be human and want to do this to your fellow humans, regardless of color, regardless of race, religious background, regardless of any of that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it takes a very twisted mindset to do some shit like that. And I mean, you gotta think, man, these movies don't come from nowhere. They ain't just making stuff up. I mean, in some cases they are, but you know, the idea has to come from something tangible in reality, you know? So just keep that in mind. Keep an open mind out here. Thank you for watching Blerds Explain, where you got to hang out with me today. I think some of my boys are gonna be here later, so we probably gonna shoot again, give y'all some more content to absorb. And you know, go ahead and like and subscribe, man. Go ahead and like and subscribe to Blerds Explain. Like and subscribe to YBF Pharoh. Like and subscribe to Just Barskie and Pharoh, to NUWABIAN MINDZ. We out here with this shit, man. We out this bitch.